Hi folks, welcome to the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast by Gary Ryan from Organisations That Matter. In this podcast, Gary shares everything about servant leadership, service leadership, authentic leadership, how to create high performance cultures, service excellence, and life balance. Here's your host, Gary Ryan.
Thank you, Sienna, for your lovely introduction. Folks, I'm absolutely excited and delighted to have Troy Mansell here with us today for episode 166 of the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. Now, Troy is a co-founder and director of Benny Button, and we're going to find out a little bit about the name Benny Button in a second. And he has spent the last decade working closely with leaders and supporting them to develop and to sustain a progressive approach to wellbeing at work, which is really important for everyone. He has an exceptional depth that I've experienced myself of corporate leadership experience and a strong understanding of what it takes to build successful teams. He is passionate about helping organisations achieve optimal outcomes by capitalising on their unique strengths and navigating through challenges with a sense of calm and clarity. Welcome, Troy.
Thanks for having me, Gary. Very excited to be here today.
I'm excited to be here. What most people wouldn't know tuning is that you and I met when we were both involved with the Montrose Football Club. I think that was 2011. Is that about right?
Yeah, that was about right. And also then flowing on to some of the work you did to support, me as a leader through a massive time of disruption in the media industry.
Yeah, that was a massive time. And I remember very clearly, Troy, just how much care you showed towards the folk that were going through that redundancy process in that large enterprise within the media industry here in Australia, and how you absolutely were the captain standing on the ship until the last moment with all of those folk, and how you did that with care and exceptional love, in fact. And I remember, it was a highly unionised environment at the time, and how much love and care actually came back towards you.
Yeah, and look, it's I tell the story often that investment in people's well-being through, a really challenging time and seeing the positive outcomes, not only in relationships, but in performance. I remember our injury rates reduced, sickness reduced, all the KPIs we used to measure for performance improved, and the strong correlation there was this investment in people's well-being and just the payback we got in people's energy, but it also allowed them to transition really well mentally and physically into the next stage of their career. And for me, historically, it was always challenging to get resources to invest in people's well-being, even though I believed in it. And then when it came to closing these massive manufacturing facilities, I had carte blanche to do it how I wanted to. So that included bringing in resources to support people in their growth, in their personal development, and that included people like you. And for me, it was a light bulb moment to see that, this investment in people's well-being across an organisation could lead to better business outcomes. So, sick of getting knocked back historically for resources, I thought, let's get out there and convince business leaders that people's well-being is good for business, not just good for people. And that's where Benny Button was, the idea of Benny Button came to life.
Which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail in a second. And I just wanted to just stay with this, the investment in the well-being of people in the workplace and how performance improved. You got real hard data about, sick days reduced, etc. And interestingly, when we've come out of the pandemic, I've seen a pattern with a lot of my clients where if someone had we're averaging 5 sick days per year out of their 15, let's say, that they had pre-pandemic. Since the pandemic has ended, in inverted commas, those very same people are taking every one of those 15 days. Now, there's this massive impact on the business for that because, unfortunately, a lot of those days are Mondays and Fridays. So you probably don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out, are they as sick as what they would have been pre-pandemic? And there's a significant effect on performance on that, and small to medium businesses in particular. There's a lot of stress on the leaders about how they manage that because they get the phone call at 7 a.m. saying, I'm not coming in, and those people are booked for work, and okay, now we've got to juggle and all of those sorts of things. But what you found was unfortunately after the horse had bolted because the places were getting shut down, which is such a pity at the time, because you do wonder. I mean, I still wonder myself, Troy, that if that investment had been allowed to occur well before that final scenario of having to shut down those manufacturing operations, maybe they wouldn't have needed to be shut down.
Yeah, it's a nice thought, but I think the way in which people were consuming media was the driving factor. But regardless, it was a great opportunity to get people through a really challenging time and, come out the other side with hope, optimism, and a sense of vitality, which, like you said, that shouldn't take a catastrophic event to make that investment, because there is so much upside and data now and evidence and science that shows well-being does influence performance and vice versa.
Yes. And so a lot of the folk that tune into the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast are experienced professionals, and sometimes they might be one of the nearly 8 out of 10 that's not as engaged in their workplace as they could be, and they're thinking about, maybe I should start my own business. Well, you're someone that did that. You were in a safe corporate environment. You chose to see it through to the end, but equally opportunities to stay in the corporate world were available, but you chose to go and create and co-found Benny Button. Tell us about that story and what drove you to do that, and the courage required, because there's always a lot of courage required to go down that path. And we both just discussing before we got on air, you're just about to turn 7 with your Benny Button birthday on the 24th of January, which is really exciting.
Yeah. Well, look, that courage and transition, it takes also a bit of strategy, I think. And, a little plug for you and your business and your ability as a coach, that, when you're in corporate world and a big business for a long period of time, you can be at risk of losing touch with your true identity. So you become this corporate executive, corporate leader, and then when you go out on your own, you don't have all these support resources around you. So you've really got to play to your strengths and understand who you are, what drives you, what your values are, what your passion is, and you're a big player in that. So I think that's the most important thing. If you just go from transition from one role to another and start your own business, and you don't really understand yourself as a human being, there's a huge amount of risk there. So that investment is really worthwhile. And I think once you get that solid foundation in being really comfortable with who you are, and you've got the right supports around you, and you've got people that believe in you and you can believe in yourself, then it's more than likely, I think, when the challenges arise, because there are hurdles and bumps along the way, that you have a sense of resilience and purpose, and you can overcome those hurdles along the way. So I think it's definitely critical that self-awareness, understanding what you need for yourself in that transition, and then just going really hard at it and not giving up. But I can understand and see, I have seen it myself, and you would have seen it many more times with me in the work that you do, that some people just fall over because I think there's some of those elements I just touched on that are missing.
And look, one of the key lessons there is that you did invest in getting yourself coached and getting support. You call it your pit crew in Benny Button. I call it your personal success team. But you cultivated that team of people around you to help you to be the best you could be in a very high stressful, very difficult scenario, a scenario that you didn't really want to have to happen, but it was the reality. You had to deal with your present reality. You had to deal with what it was, but make the best of it, and equally make sure that you were able to come out the other side of it ready for the next step in your life, because that role was ending for you too. No matter whether you went into corporate or not, the fact is you went and started Benny Button, but you had to be right for that. So that investment in you that you'd been doing well before even I came along, to be fair, enabled you to navigate that extremely challenging time of your life and actually make it an event that lasted a period of years, but you made that event actually work in your favor moving forward. And this is what investment means. That's a return on your investment, right? And it's not just the money side of your investment, like getting, paying for coaching and stuff. It's the investment of the time and effort to do that work on your self-awareness, which you did. Now, Benny Button's a fascinating name. We've got to go to the story of Benny Button and how that relates to what you do now.
Yeah, cool. So firstly on the name, I always give this guy a bit of a plug, Rod Dry. He was part of our founding team at the time. Rod was in his mid-60s. His son, Justin, actually is the founder of Vino Mofo, which is a really successful wine distribution business that's global now. But Rod, being in his mid-60s, he had a 4-year-old at the time, and he was quite passionate about his longevity, because he was thinking, as my son gets older, I want to be there for the milestone moments. And he said, so I need to find a way to turn back the clock and reverse my age. And there was a bit of humour to that, but he was also going down the sort of biohacking elements to try and work out how he could sustain his health span and longevity. But as we were having this discussion, we were actually in a restaurant at the time, and a young waitress walked past and said, sounds like you're trying to do a Benjamin Button there. And we just both looked at each other and thought, oh, that's playful. We had to put a bit of a tweak there and call it Benny Button so that there was no copyright issues. Yes. But part of that playfulness was what we and my business partner now, Dr. Adrian Medhurst, wanted to bring into the corporate wellbeing market. There was so many organisations and businesses that were in the system that were very medical, and we thought we need to bring back some spirit and fun and playfulness into workplaces, which we need even more now.
Yes.
So that's where Benny Button, the name, came in, and it's just a play on words, and it's this thought that you can, turn back the clock, find your youthfulness, and play at work, play in life, and have some fun rather than all this doom and gloom that's around us at the moment, and worrying about risk all the time. Bring that sense of vitality into our work and life.
Name whoever you're allowed to name, but what would be some examples for our audience, Troy, of play in the workplace?
Of play in the workplace? Well, I think, and I'll go back to Professor Backer's work, who's one of our board advisors now. Playful work design, it's about, I guess, when you have tasks that may be mundane in your workday, which there are. There's always things that, and it could be your emails that have backed up. In half an hour, can I get through 20 emails and turn it into a little competition and playfulness? There's been stories of security guards that may need to stand in the one spot all day, and you could imagine the boredom that could come with that. But can I count the amount of steps that a person takes from one place to another and come up with an average at the end of the day and turn it into a bit of fun? That might not sound like fun for everyone, but you've got to find, what gives you enjoyment in your work. And you've got to have that kind of mindset that work can be playful, and that can be about relationships as well, and laughter in the workplace. We've got KPIs, we've got important jobs and outcomes we need to achieve, but it doesn't always have to come with just seriousness along the way. There can be an element of fun and playfulness in our work as well.
Yeah, so along those lines, I'm an advocate that you're in charge of your energy, and you've got to bring your energy. Now, I believe in bringing my energy to work, but I believe in bringing my energy to my family, to my friends. If I've got some friends, which we've got coming over on the weekend, some from Western Australia, I'm going to be bringing our energy as a host. I'm in control of that. And so if it's creating little games like how many emails can I get through in 20 minutes and see if I can beat what I thought I did last time, or how many steps someone's taking to move from there. What's that? Like that's maintaining and controlling your energy. It's also being present. It's also about being present and being able to do your role as a result of that. And, the well-being and live well and have impact, which is your logo there for Benny Button, is absolutely true that it's possible for everyone. And yet we have such high statistics of people being disengaged in the workplace. The Gallup State of the Workplace report from last year, we had a record here in Australia where we got 22% of engaged people. Globally, the record was 23%, but that's still like nearly 8 out of 10 people not engaged to some degree, including nearly 20% that are actively disengaged in the workplace. That's not healthy for people. That's not living well. What are some advice you have for those folk that may be listening and recognizing, hey, that's me?
Oh, look, you mentioned the word energy, which I think is so important these days. And we can look at that on different levels. So that's your energy as an individual, the energy of a team, the energy of an organization. But everyone has a role to play in that. And we all need to be accountable for our own energy and our own resources that we can control. So I think, and going back to what you were talking about in starting Benny Button, so whether you're a small business, whether you're a leader of a team or an executive, investing in your own capacity so that you can navigate through challenges and the demands with a sense of calm, with a sense of clarity, that takes energy and it takes investment in well-being. So that's everything from, your sleep routine at night to, we were talking earlier about the media that you're consuming. Are you, after a challenging day at work, you get home, you might pretend to engage with the dog as you open the door, but you really, your mind's just going, I just want to flop on the couch. I just want a beer and I just want to flick on the TV and watch some sport or some Netflix. I mean, this is a thing that we're seeing quite often. And in the literature, again, back to Professor Backer's work, it's called self-undermining. So yes. When you're depleted of energy, you want to gravitate towards comfort. And a lot of the time that is things like I've just explained that scenario there, or it can be substance abuse for some people. And we need to hack into that system and do the things that are proactive and beneficial for our energy. So that can be as simple as, when you get home, mindfully engage with the dog and your family members if you are in that situation. But put the runners on and go for a walk. Get outside and take some time to yourself. Don't take the phone with you unless you're listening to a podcast or something like that. But get outside, go for a walk or go for a run. Do the things that your body's telling you that you don't want to do. And this will create this sense of energy that you bring back into the workplace. And I think that is so important because our energy that we bring back into the workplace has a rippling effect on everyone around us. And,
yes.
If we're turning up to work and, you're teetering on burnout, you're cynical, you might have feelings of hopelessness, then rest assured people around you and next to you are going to suffer from that energy that you're bringing in. So it's hard work. And investing in that well-being, energy and capacity is unique to every individual, and you need to find what works for you and keep it really small and simple. And the thing is that as you keep it really small and simple, your body then wants to do more. So it wants to go and get more energy. It wants to go after more resources, and this becomes a gain spiral. But sometimes it's just hard getting out of that rut and knowing where to start when it comes to energy creation, because we're just feeling depleted and, looking for that comfort, which so much of the time is, creating that negative energy return.
Yeah, it's self-defeating, as you mentioned there, that we get into these habits. And that's why, I still believe my brain is very much a mammal's brain, and therefore my mind is a beast. And what I feed the beast is really important. And I have to feed the beast positivity. I have to feed the beast the sorts of things that is going to help it have the energy to do what I want to be able to do in my life. And that's conscious and it's deliberate. I don't need anyone else to tell me to do that. I get to make that choice. And I believe irrespective of what position you might hold in an organization's hierarchy, you are the leader of you. Like, you can cultivate your pit crew. You can cultivate what you feed your mind. You can choose to put those runners on and go and move rather than flop on the couch. You can choose, You know, if you are in a loving relationship, you know, with a partner or a child or something like that, take them on the walk with you and have a conversation. Like, use that time. There are multiple birds you can, in inverted commas, kill with that one stone of getting up and moving, and that all of that's going to contribute to your well-being. And you know, even in the workplace, does every meeting have to be in a room?
Absolutely. Oh, I'm just going to pull you up on one thing, talking about positive energy. How many birds can we feed with one scone? That's the positive angle on killing birds with one stone.
How many birds can you feed with one stone? I like that. Thank you.
Scone, not stone, scone.
Scone, yes. Down in Melbourne, I call it a scone.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't rhyme as well.
That doesn't rhyme that well. So, but look, that's another thing that you talked about games before. You know, I challenge people with the no negativity game. How long, literally, how many minutes can you go without letting negativity that gets in your head come out of your mouth or in your behavior? So sometimes you can't control the thoughts you have, but can you stop it? You know, I can't do that. You can't do that. Oh, that's not going to work. That's all negativity. Can you instead become, when you catch it, become curious? Go, how might that work? What if we try that? Tell me a little bit more about that. And see how long, folks, you can go without being negative. See if you can get through a whole day. Now, I still haven't got to a whole day, 24 hours yet myself, right? But it's an interesting, fun game to play, like the no negativity game. Can I actually get through even half an hour? Can you get through? Honestly, Troy, it's fascinating. When I do this in workshops, a lot of people struggle to get through 5 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. And look, you, again, through a mutual friend of ours and someone I did work with early days after transitioning out of corporate world, was a person by the name of Kane Johnson. And Kane was actually the first person, and many people might know Kane as, you know, ex-Richmond captain, but now he's just so passionate about mindfulness and meditation and Qigong. And he introduced me to that world back in that time where we were shutting down manufacturing sites, and that's now become one of my real passions, is breathing better and being a mindful person. And that takes training and practice. Yes. And that has been a game changer for me in terms of how I respond to those negative thoughts that do come into your minds, because that is the I think the real skill. You are going to have those negative thoughts, but how you respond to those, what comes out of your mouth or what actions you take is all that matters.
Yes.
And recognizing those negative thoughts and you know, letting them go through to the keeper if they don't serve you. You know, that takes skill and practice, and it's a massive opportunity for people and organizations at the moment. Stress mastery and mindful action are two of our hero factors in the work that we do, and we're doing a lot of education with leaders and people in organizations in those skills. But as the world becomes more challenging and there's so much going on, you know, how people are choosing to respond and react to all this stimulus that's out there is, I think, again, having a rippling effect in our communities, in our workplaces. And it takes accountability and for people to go, no, there is a better way, and explore things like mindfulness. And it doesn't have to always be, you know, sitting on a yoga mat, breathing for 20 minutes. It can be getting out and all walking, which is going out and looking for things that you might not have recognized before. They might be smaller than you, or they might be things that just create this sense of awe rather than being in your head all the time. Practicing mindfulness, whether it's walking, whether it's swimming, whether it's playing an instrument, whether it's breathing, we need to do more of this so that we can use that in the heat of the battle, these skills that we train and how we respond to these activations.
And as soon as you mentioned the word mindfulness, I started practicing some while you were speaking, while I was listening to you. And that was just, I put my feet flat on the floor.
Beautiful.
At the back of my mind, I noticed my bottom in my seat. Just to slow it down. I actually literally could feel my heart rate slowing down. Just so I could listen, be present with you speaking. And these are some of those simple mindfulness techniques, as you say, Troy, aren't sitting on a yoga mat for 20 minutes practicing yoga. That is a form of mindfulness, but A lot of people think it's the only form, and there's so many other practical mindfulness tools that people can use no matter where they are at any moment in any time of the day, and to build it into their suite of tools so that when they may be in a meeting at work and someone says something that triggers them, their awareness is that they notice they're triggered, and then they have a choice about how they react. It's so much powerful and so much better for the workplace, because then they don't end up saying something they shouldn't say that might be disrespectful to someone else, which only creates more negativity. They actually can come at it with a curiosity.
And speaking of curiosity, and again, I know you're passionate about this, but listening well and asking good questions. I've never in my lifetime, it's a big call, but have noticed that people aren't listening anymore, and they just want to speak over the top of people, and they're not asking questions. It's, all about them. We're in this world where we need to, I think, just slow down, listen more, be curious, and ask really good questions. And I think we can learn from that as individuals, but also have better conversations rather than these, meaningless meetings that there's crossfire and not really any outcomes because people just aren't listening and they just want to speak.
Yeah, the Australian Open's on at the moment, but it can be a great metaphor for a lot of conversations. And the ball's the conversation, and I speak and hit it over the net, and then you see the ball come at you, so it's my turn to speak. So I hit it over the net, and we got this ball going back and forth, but we're not actually creating anything brand new because we're not doing the listening. And what would be one or two of the simple tactics that you teach people? Because there's a lot of education around listening, and I believe I've witnessed the same phenomenon, Troy, where people are for some reason listening less. What are some practical things that you teach folk to enable them to be present and to listen?
Well, I think that mindfulness cross-training is really important. That's sort of macro, but I think micro, a good tactic can be to double down on your breathing. So if you're in a meeting, as an example, or in a situation and you're activated and you feel like you want to respond, if you can exhale twice as long as the inhale, it's going to bring an immediate sense of calm. And that can allow you to just slow down, listen, wait for the people to finish talking, but also, think about how you might want to respond to the conversation that's happening, either one-to-one or one-to-many in the room. So I think, again, using a tool that every human being has access to. So rather than in that meeting being up above the chest and rapid breathing, just slow down the breath twice as long on the exhale as the inhale. Mm-hmm. And you'll find, and I used to use this in negotiations in that unionized environment, that you'll be the calmest person in the room.
Yes.
You'll have the most clarity in the room. And again, this takes practice. It's not natural for everyone, but it's a really simple tactic that can just, because even when you're doing that double the exhale and you do that a number of times, it's like, this is my opportunity to just be silent and listen and give people. And even if there is a little bit of space in between when someone finishes talking before you engage, I think that's a real art and a real skill as well.
And it's so learnable. As you say, we all breathe out. Just double the length of your breathing out. I mean, technically, that's one of those mindfulness techniques, like feeling your bottom in the back of the seat, feeling your feet on the floor, that triggers your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system that calms you down. The sympathetic nervous system is the one that gets you fired up and breathing up here, as you were just saying. So there is some science behind this, folks. It's not just it's just not just mindfulness, wacko stuff. It actually is backed by science, and this stuff works. And why wouldn't you follow what science has actually taught us works to help us keep calm? And when you are doing that breathing out, it can help remind you to listen for the words to duplicate that someone else has said. Their exact words. Try to duplicate the words that people say. And so, for example, before we started today's meeting today and the interview, Troy was talking about his pit crew. Now, that's the same as I mentioned earlier, that I call it the personal success team. But Troy called it picture. I went, okay, I've got to duplicate that. That's what makes sense to Troy. I've got to duplicate that. So if I'm listening for the sorts of words that I can duplicate and build into the conversation, when I use those exact words, and I'm not parroting, I'm not saying the exact same words of the whole sentence. I'm just picking the key words that jump out, which are often nouns or action words or verbs or phrases like that. Pick out those key words, duplicate them, and bring them back with curiosity. The response from the other person is, you listen to me.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that a nice feeling?
And that's exactly right. I mean, if you want to influence people, give them through these techniques the clear message that you listen to them, because most people, I don't know the science data on this one, I'm sorry, folks, but I think most people listening are going to agree with what I'm about to say. Most people don't feel like anyone's listening to them.
Spot on. And I think, you're talking about the 20-odd% engagement, which some people celebrate, which is, I think, frightening. One thing as a leader, whether you've got a small business or a team or a part of a big organization, like I said before, is that ability to listen to people, to influence them. And then you're going to build followers, because people are receptive to being heard. So they're then more willing to listen to you, and then you can have a greater sense of influence over time. And I think a process that can really amplify that exchange, that win-win exchange of listening and being heard, is a process of checking in. So I think it's critical these days where, some workforces are dispersed, or our social interactions at work might not be like they used to be. So we need to create moments where we're having either one-to-one or one-to-many if you've got a team. How are we going?
Yes.
How have we been investing in our well-being? Where's our focus? What's important for us now? What actions are we going to take? So asking these questions that can stimulate really great conversations. And they're beautiful when they're one-to-one, but at times you don't have the resources to be able to get to everyone, although it needs to be a priority. I think Simon Sinek says it's the number one skill of any leader these days, is to have one-to-one check-ins regularly.
Yes.
But you can use technology as well when there are those moments where you just can't get to people. We created an application, a Wellbeing Check-in application, that's helping leaders get a sense of people's capacity and their contribution that they're having in the workplace. And that's at a team level, and getting really good insights that you can then use for conversations. As an example, it looks like our well-being's dropping off, or when we don't feel like we're contributing as much as what we were last month. What's going on? How can I support you? What can we do to course correct? But we get swept up in the day-to-day and the momentum and the demands that come with our work and life. And it's too often that we just don't stop, pause, find the space to check in with each other and to listen and to be heard.
And with that the application that you were just talking about, one of the things about that is you don't have to wait for your annual staff engagement or staff satisfaction survey to finally get some data to act on. This app is giving you live daily data that you can utilize. Do you want to just give folks a little bit more information about their app and where they could get it from, Troy?
Yeah, well, it's a first release product. It's in the market. It's actually, we're really proud. It's being incorporated into the New South Wales Government Leadership Academy for leaders to check in on their wellbeing through, what is an amazing learning and development experience. We're doing that in partnership with Deloitte. But the first release of the product is to really help an individual to find some time to stop and reflect on how things have been going, to focus on what matters most. So this could be an area of your well-being. It could be your response to stress, mindfulness, like we were talking about before. It could be about your nutrition, about your rest, about your connection with others, about your personal growth, learning and development. But what actions are you taking that are positive towards growing in one of those areas that's important to you? we provide people with tips and recommendations and resources to help them, but we also give people the freedom to create their own actions and what's going to serve them best. And there's reminders there, and it's integrated into your calendar. So it's really just about helping people keep wellbeing on the radar. Why that's important, over 7 years now, we have data that shows when people's wellbeing is above the line, so we're saying, let's say 7.5 to 10,
Yep.
they're an 80 to 85% chance of being in the high performance zone. When wellbeing drops to below 6.5, you're about a 4 to 6% chance of being in the high performance zone. So there's a huge discrepancy there. So what that means is the more that you invest in your well-being, there's going to be this return on investment in your sense of contribution. And this is in work and life, not just in the workplace,
Yes,
in
100%.
life outside of work as well. So really the app, the Wellbeing Checkpoint app, is to help people keep wellbeing on the radar, take some accountability in your own energy and resources, like we said before, rather than just being the victim or being passive, like being really proactive in how you're investing in your well-being, and then monitoring that over the time. And the beauty of that, as you said before, leadership teams and organizations get this live data in terms of how people are feeling and functioning, which is so important. As I said, when you might have an organization or a team that is dispersed across Australia or globally even. We've got some really exciting developments that are coming, which include AI, which are just going to help people land on what is that right action that they need to take to course correct in terms of their well-being, and even get predictive in understanding when people might be on a bit of a loss spiral, how we can help them quickly course correct so that they don't suffer from burnout or mental illness or depression over time.
Oh, that's just fabulous. Like, that is really powerful, Troy. And, even on that conversational level that we were just talking about before the app, and when you put those two things together, having this data can actually help with a simple conversation that I encourage people to start with in their teams or one-on-ones, which is, what's a win you've had since we last caught up? Now, that win does not have to be work-based. It can be anything. So maybe the app is helping them be a bit, it might be reducing their sugar intake, or it might be being a bit more active, or just spending a bit more quality time with a loved one. It might be something like that. And they share the win of that. And we know the chemicals that the body releases when you tell a story that's about a little win like that matters to you, which the app helps you recognize what they might be. There is the ripple effect into the work and the team and the energy. Like, it's all in one direction, which we want it to be. And this is 100% controllable by people, isn't it?
Yeah, and it gets me excited hearing you speak like that, because whilst this technology is really useful, the magic is in the conversations that come from it. So you are 100% spot on. If we're just living in a world of technology in isolation, there's no real fulfillment there. There is some, but it's when you start to share stories. You can share experiences about your growth or relapse, which is, a real superpower as well, that you can speak openly about the challenges that you're facing and that you might be experiencing relapse or times that are really difficult. But it's the behavior of checking in and finding space in either your workday or your life outside of work to take some time for reflection on what is a win that I've had, or why am I feeling this way, and who can I reach out to for that support that I might need, rather than getting on this treadmill and like we said before, when you're feeling depleted and your energy is being absorbed all by work because you might be in really demanding periods, finding yourself in this habit of self-undermining, which is not doing yourself any service. We've got to hack into that system and cycle. And I think leaders can influence that by reminding people and being role models in this space. You don't have to be perfect, but displaying these behaviors of checking in, sharing wins, sharing stories of vulnerability if they're appropriate. So I think leaders as role models and influencers is so critical at the moment to help people get out of these loss spirals and to have a sense of hope and positivity and get the moments to share their wins.
Yes, because the leaders are human beings too, and I think sometimes team members can forget that. They can forget that the leader is a human being just like them, and they've got all the sorts of stresses and pressures that everyone else has got going on too. Okay, they get paid more most of the time, but not always. And to treat them like that too. Troy, we have come to the time where we could keep talking for quite some time. There's no doubt about that. I'd love you to let the audience know what are some of the best ways for them to connect with you and with Benny Button.
Yeah, look, our website is hello@bennybutton.com, so you can reach out at any point there. bennybutton.com, our website, has a lot of information about our business. Look, we're working with areas like the New South Wales government, but we're also starting some work next week with the Cheshire School, which is a special needs kids school, helping the teachers navigate those challenges. So, and we do a lot of discount work for not-for-profits, but we also then, do some great work with the bigger organisations as well. But go to our website, bennybutton.com, and you can find all the information there, including how to contact us.
And I've also, if you're happy, I'll put your LinkedIn link into the show notes, as well as the Benny Button LinkedIn link as well. Is that, you're happy for me to pop both?
Yeah, absolutely. I think LinkedIn is a great resource at the moment, and I know you're active there. I am as well. But anything that inspires us, typically we're sharing on there. So hopefully, it's a great networking platform, and happy for you to share that.
And there's a lot of information you're sharing with Dr. Adrian Medhurst on LinkedIn that's free for people to access. And so it's a great way for people to go and learn a little bit more about what does wellbeing in the workplace actually look like, sound like, what are some of your client experiences. All that's available there through both your website and on LinkedIn. Troy, I'd like to really say thank you to you for joining me on the Moving Beyond Being podcast here today.
It's a pleasure, Gaz.
No worries, mate. Now, folks, earlier you might have heard that Troy mentioned that he did an early version of the Yes for Success program. And many of you would know that I published the book in November of last year. Actually, the Kindle version came out in October. I've just finished the audiobook recording, and that should be out on Audible and all other audiobook online stores within the next few weeks. We'll certainly let you know when that's out and available. And of course, there is the updated online version of the Yes for Success program. You just simply need to go to www.yesforsuccess.guru, and .guru is G-U-R-U if you want to check that out. Once again, we're absolutely delighted to have had Troy Mansell here with us today, the co-founder of the Benny Button organisation. It's been a delight to have you with us, Troy. And folks, we look forward to catching up with you all on the next episode of the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. Bye.